On December 8th, Bashar al-Assad, the ruthless strongman of Syria, fled his country fearing for his life. At first, it may look like just one more brutal dictator losing his grip on a small, militarily weak country. But this is much, much more than that. It has powerful implications for Russia, Ukraine, Iran, the United States, Israel, the entire Middle East, and quite frankly, even the world, and of course, for Bible prophecy. And check this out. Assad didn't just escape, it appears. He cut a deal with Russia. He smuggled $135 billion in US dollars to Russia in the process of his departure from Syria. But before we look at the implications of these events, and then look at all the countries, including the US, and then finally the prophetic implications, we need to ask how this happened and why now. Welcome to the Tom Hughes Report, and thank you, His Channel, for the opportunity to film our weekly reports here at the His Channel TV studio. In the immediate aftermath of Assad's fall, an anchor person on one of the major news channels asked a guest if this raised the possibility that there might be a civil war in Syria. Might be a civil war in Syria? Where has she been? A savage, brutal civil war has been ongoing in Syria since 2011. A better question might be, will this end the civil war in Syria? With the Syrian civil war beginning back in 2011, and with at least 3 nuclear powers involved, Russia, the United States, and Israel, it was easy to start imagining ways in which the prophecy might be close to fulfillment. But the time was not right. The people of Damascus got a reprieve. Destruction was forestalled. In the last few days, we've seen regime change in Syria, not the destruction of Damascus. Having a change of leaders is not at all the same as being turned into a smoking pile of rubble. Still, when war surrounds Damascus, it gets our attention. The Syrian civil war has been going on for almost 14 years. But for a while now, Assad seemed to have things well in hand. Then suddenly, just days ago, the rebels launched an offensive that brought Assad down with breathtaking speed. A big question. Here it is. What happened and why now? Well, let's answer that. If you Google cause of the Syrian civil war, you will find answers centering on discontent with Bashar al-Assad, his extreme brutality, drought, financial instability, and the desire for democracy and greater human rights. But the root cause of the civil war goes back to a division in Islam from the days following Muhammad's death in the year 635. A power struggle led to a major schism between those who came to be called Sunni Muslims and those who called themselves Shiite Muslims. About 85% of Muslims worldwide are Sunnis, with most of the rest being Shiite. In Syria, 74% of the population is Sunni and 13% Shiite. Assad is an Alawite. That's a subset of Shiites. This created a fundamental tension between the ruler and his people. So what happened? After almost 14 years, how did the rebels so quickly gain the upper hand? The answer is directly linked to Hamas and its blood-soaked attack on Israel, October 7 of 2023. Even the brutality of that attack played a key role in the events that followed. Against all the rules of modern warfare, Hamas aimed their attack primarily at civilians and took civilian hostages they killed with shocking brutality. This forced Israel's hand. They had to respond, and that response had to be a full-fledged invasion of Gaza. No matter what the United States or anyone else said, they knew they had to destroy not just a few Hamas strongholds, but Hamas itself. They had to make certain Hamas could no longer govern the Gaza Strip. We have all of that, and then we enter into the conversation. Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is a Shia Muslim group based in Lebanon, but founded and funded by Iran. The day following the Hamas attack, Hezbollah began firing missiles at Israel. During the year that followed, they launched over 10,000 missiles into Israel. Hezbollah's attacks forced 70,000 Israelis out of their homes and kept them away for more than a year. Israel made retaliatory strikes, but kept its main focus on Hamas and Gaza. And that was Hezbollah's plan. They wanted to be a nuisance, a distraction for Israel. They did not want a full-fledged war. But 10,000 missiles cannot be ignored. Finally, Israel did respond, and in a major way. You may remember the pager and walkie-talkie attacks which disabled large numbers of Hezbollah fighters. Those attacks also destroyed Hezbollah's command and control infrastructure. Israel launched missile attacks, taking out Hezbollah's leaders. A new one would take the job, and Israel would find and kill the new leader. It was unique in the sense of the history of war. Israel also did ground incursions into Lebanon to take out Hezbollah military installations, especially missiles and missile launchers. Make no mistake about it, Hezbollah is a terror group, not a nation, no matter what people on college campuses in the U.S. say. But on October 6th of 2023, the day before the invasion from Hamas into Israel, on October 6th of 2023, Hezbollah had more firepower than, get this, most NATO countries. Hezbollah had at least 150,000 missiles, many of which were highly sophisticated ballistic missiles. They no longer have such an arsenal. Israel sought out those weapons and destroyed a vast number of them. Hezbollah still has missiles and missile launchers, but it no longer has the firepower of a major military. But today, Hezbollah is busy just trying to survive. They show little interest in helping Assad keep his power. And next, we enter Russia into this conversation. So Russia entered the Syrian civil war on Assad's behalf in 2015. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia lost most of its influence in the Middle East. Knowing that region's strategic importance, Russia wanted to regain a stronghold in the area. Iran has been a pariah state since its Islamic Revolution in 1979. And year after year, the U.S. State Department declared Iran the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism. In its quest for a nuclear weapon, it garnered sanctions from many nations and the UN. Iran needed any friends it could get. China and North Korea stepped in, but most of all, Russia allied itself with Iran. Today, Russia uses Iranian drones to devastating effect across Ukraine. When Assad seemed to be faltering in Syria, Iran convinced Russia to enter the fight. In 2015, Russia put troops on the ground in Syria and began conducting airstrikes and ground operations. But, as President-elect Trump points out, Russia lost all interest in Syria because of Ukraine. And of course, what about Assad's ally, main ally, Iran? Well, on the 1st of April, Israel launched a retaliatory missile attack on Hezbollah. In it, they killed a group of senior Iranian consulate leaders. Iran didn't want to fight Israel directly. They wanted to use proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. For them, it was a low-risk, high-reward method of war. But when the Iranian officials died in an Israeli attack, they knew they had to retaliate against Israel themselves. To pawn it off on proxies would make them look fearful and weak. So, for the first time, the Islamic Republic of Iran directly attacked its enemy, Israel. It was on April 13th of 2024. It was a huge strike involving 170 drones, along with 30 crews and 120 ballistic missiles. But with the help of the United States and others, and of course the Lord himself, because so much of it was miraculous, Israel destroyed most of those weapons while they were still in the air. At President Biden's urging, Israel gave only a token response to Iran's massive attack. Then, in July, Israel did something that Iran never thought possible. They killed the political leader of Hamas while he was in Tehran under the protection of the Iranian government. His presence in the Iranian capital was not surprising. After all, Iran has funded Hamas military operations for years. Naturally, they wanted a say in Hamas's war efforts against Israel. But Israeli operatives were able to plant a bomb inside the bedroom they knew that he would be staying in. They remotely detonated it, and Iran vowed revenge. And in September, as part of Israel's response to Hezbollah's ongoing missile barrage, the IDF targeted Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah in a missile attack on their military headquarters. The leader of Iran's Quds force in Lebanon happened to be in a strategy meeting with Nasrallah. Both men were killed. These and other events again left the mullahs humiliated and longing for revenge. It made them look weak to the people of the Middle East, to the people of the world, to their fellow Shiite Muslims, and to their enemy Sunni Muslims. But most dangerous of all, it made the mullahs look weak to the people of Iran. Unhappiness with the theocratic Muslim rule of their leaders was already widespread. Sparks of rebellion were in the air. The leaders of Iran felt they needed another show of power against Israel.
At Hope for Our Times, our mission is to spread the hope of Jesus Christ through the Word of God. Your generous contributions empower us to create impactful videos and resources that offer hope during uncertain times. We invite you to partner with us in our mission. If you feel called to support us, please visit our website at hopeforourtimes.com, where you'll find various ways to contribute financially. Additionally, donations can be sent by mail to Hope for Our Times, 1281 North State Street, Suite A311, San Jacinto, California, 92583. Your partnership directly fuels our efforts to develop new resources and connect with a wider audience. By partnering with us, you become an integral part of our mission to share the hope of Jesus Christ with a world in need. And now let's return to the Tom Hughes Report.
On October 1st, Iranian leaders launched the largest ballistic missile attack in world history, over 200 ballistic missiles in 2 waves, and Iran also claims to have used a small number of Fatah hypersonic missiles in their attack. It didn't matter. Israel and the U.S. shot most of them down, and by the way, it really was with God's help. God had given the ability and the mind to the people of Israel and to the U.S. to be able to still come along their side. It is God's miraculous protection. But with that, a few missiles struck civilian areas, but only one Israeli was killed, and he died of a heart attack. Still, Israel could not make a mere token response to such an attack. And by the way, again, I want to reemphasize this. This is God's protection of the nation of Israel. He never slumbers or sleeps. President Biden warned Israel against attacking Iran's oil production or nuclear weapons facilities. While Israel somewhat avoided those targets, Israel used over 100 aircraft to attack air defense batteries, a drone factory, and missile production facilities. Israel lost no aircraft in the operation. The attack was an overwhelming success. Israel had smashed Hezbollah and crippled the Iranian military. Russia had no troops or weapons left over from its war with which to help Assad. These factors combined to provide Syrian rebels with the opening they needed. And in that, there are some serious questions with repercussions that can affect the world that need to be considered. So what does Assad's fall mean for the Syrian people? Well, they may have simply traded one dictator for another. The U.S. has placed the label terrorists on the main rebel group known as HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a coalition of northern Syria-based Sunni Islamist insurgent groups. Its leader, Abu al-Jilani, has been working hard in the last few years to disassociate himself from his past ties to Al-Qaeda. But that looks more like PR than anything else. Listen, this looks like just another branch of Al-Qaeda itself. At least the Syrians will be ruled by the brand of Islam most of them favor. Okay, moving on from there. Several more things we need to address. What does it mean for Christians in Syria? After the rebel takeover, one of their senior commanders declared on TV, "Our message to all the sects of Syria is that we tell them that Syria is for everyone." Listen, I don't believe a word of it. Before the war, Christians constituted 10% of the Syrian population. That number has now fallen below 3%. Many fled the country and others were killed. Persecution has been at an all-time high. You'll remember that early Christianity was vibrant in the region. It was on the road to Damascus that Saul encountered Jesus. He wanted to stop a major Christian awakening from happening in the region. A strong Christian community has been there ever since. Remember them in your prayers because they're going to need it. And again, if the leaders of the rebel group are saying, hey, this is all about, we want to be all inclusive, what were their exact words? Syria is for everyone. Imagine being a Jew and trying to live there right now too. Listen, these are lies. What are the further implications for Iran? Iran's puppet regime in Syria is gone. This pushes them further into the arms of their unlikely ally in the extreme north, as Ezekiel 38 tells us, Russia. That seems to be setting them both up for the war against Israel promised in Ezekiel chapter 38. Syria can no longer serve as Iran's staging ground in their war against Israel, and Iran can no longer use Syria for the munitions manufacturing set up to arm Hamas and Hezbollah. What does this mean to Israel? Primarily it means that God is still protecting them and using them to protect us all. A couple of years ago, Hezbollah was building an unprecedented arsenal, and Iran was supplying Hamas and Hezbollah with a seemingly unlimited supply of weapons. It was dark enough that Christians were beginning to wonder if modern Israel could survive. The world was against them. Israel's enemies seemed poised to overpower them. Some questioned their understanding of Bible prophecy. Hey, I want to encourage you at this point. If you know Bible prophecy, you knew darn well that Israel is going to survive. But you talk to most Christians, they were thinking it's the end of Israel. In fact, many Christians are even against Israel, even more so now, since all of this began back in October of 2023. And today, Israel's enemies have not disappeared. But because of the Hamas attack of October of 2023, Israel today is in a far stronger position than it was on October 6th. Far stronger. All right, a little bit more to go. As we look at this, what's going on with Israel and the amazing strength that Israel has been given by the Lord. Understand that. From the pagers and the walkie-talkies to what's been going on in Gaza with Hamas and Hezbollah to the north. And now we see everything in Iran. And even terror groups are turning against each other. This is the you can't make this up stuff. But also, check this out. Don't miss this. It's a reminder of Zechariah chapter 12, where this is what the Bible says, where the people of Israel become great warriors. Listen to these words. Zechariah chapter 12, beginning in verse 5, "And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are my strength in the Lord of hosts their God," as God who strengthens Israel. This is the prophecy of the future when all the world turns against Jerusalem. But it's like we're getting the trailer, we're getting the movie scenes for what's coming right now. Listen to this. Goes on and says, "In that day, I will make the governors of Judah like a firepan in the woodpile and like a fiery torch in the sheaves. They shall devour all the surrounding peoples on the right hand and on the left. But Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place." Jerusalem. "The Lord will save the tents of Judah first, so that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall not become greater than that of Judah. In that day the Lord will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The one who is feeble among them in that day shall be like David, and the house of David shall be like God, like the angel of the Lord before them. It shall be in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. I look at this again and I say, I look at this, in that day the Lord will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The feeble among them will be like David. That's a reference to David when he takes the sling and he takes out the giant, the enemy, with one shot. This is what Israel has been experiencing since October 7 of 2023, the great destruction that came upon them. They rose up, but it is God who is with them. Amazing. And again, this prophecy of Zechariah chapter 12, it still has its fulfillment in the future, but we are getting a foretaste of what is coming even right now. In the last year, Israel wiped away much of the military infrastructure that Iran has been building in Gaza and Lebanon for years. But Sunni Muslims don't like Jews any more than Shiite Muslims. Both groups follow the Quran, and the Quran encourages Muslims to A, kill Jews, and B, to never give up on territory once occupied by Muslims. A new Sunni Syria will find allies all over, mostly Sunni Middle East. Keep in mind that at one time, Assad's Syria held one of the largest chemical weapons arsenals in the world. It was supposed to have been shipped to Russia for disposal, but that hasn't happened. And we can guess how the rebels might want to use it. So what does the change mean in Syria to the United States? In the immediate future, it raises questions about the security of the approximately 900 troops still in Syria. President Biden has said that he will keep them there. The Syrian rebels are allied with Turkey. That nation is still a member of NATO and a trade partner with the U.S. and Europe. For that reason, the U.S. troops are probably safe there at this moment. But these events should make it safer for U.S. naval forces in the region. But here's the real clincher. What does it all mean for Bible prophecy? Here's the deal. The rapture is imminent, meaning it could happen at any time. There's not a sign that needs to take place before the rapture takes place. But the tribulation period itself is tied to God's prophetic clock, Israel. At the moment, things don't look quite as urgent as they did a couple of years ago. The world is still against the Jews, but their closest enemies have been rendered less dangerous. However, the events of the last few months have probably convinced Iran that it must press on toward a nuclear arsenal of its own. And that could be one of the factors in Israel's decision to one day enter into a treaty with Antichrist. That act will usher in the worst of times while leading to the best of times. And it appears everything will soon be escalating to the shouts of peace, peace, reminding us of the words from 1 Thessalonians chapters 4 and 5, where Paul the Apostle says, I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, considering those who have died, and then those of us. For those who have died, they will be caught up. They will be called up from the graves. And then he goes on and says, and we who are alive will be caught up together with them. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. And then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up, shall be harpazo, shall be raptured. We shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in there, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Listen, comfort one another with these words. And then the Apostle Paul says this, but concerning the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them, and they shall not escape, like pregnancy pains upon a woman who's about ready to give birth. So Paul makes it very clear there's two different sets of people here. The believers who have been caught up, raptured, harpazoed. We are with the Lord in the air. That rapture, it is imminent. It's going to happen at any moment. And then he says, you should already know this. Those who are left behind, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them, and they shall not escape. Folks, I look at everything going on right now, and the shouts for peace, peace, the shouts for peace and safety are only going to grow louder and louder as everything increases towards war and rumors of war. And ultimately, the shouts of peace, peace, peace and safety are going to come right there, not just from the Middle East, but from the area of Israel and the area of Jerusalem. People are getting done with the fighting. Especially imagine if you're a Jew with all of the anti-Semitism and with all of the wars, wanting to just be able to live in peace. That man coming, known as Antichrist and the Beast, he's going to promise Israel peace, but he is the liar. Listen, think of the good news. The good news is this. There's a new world order coming with the leader being Antichrist, but that only lasts for 7 years. But ultimately, the new world order we look forward to is at the end of the tribulation when Jesus comes back and he rules and reigns from Jerusalem, and he brings genuine peace to the nation of Israel, to the Jews. He is the real protector and the lover of the Jewish people, and he is also going to bring his peace to the world. Listen, with all of these things developing, we can tell that everything is converging, just as Jesus himself said, when he said, when you see all these things begin to take place, look up and lift up your head because your redemption draws near. God bless you guys. See you back here next time.
Imagine being in Israel as the sun is rising over the Sea of Galilee, or walking on the streets of Jerusalem, visiting the city of Nazareth, or having a Bible study in Capernaum at the Apostle Peter's house. Pastor Tom Hughes will be leading a tour to the land of Jesus. We will explore Israel together and bring the Bible to life before your very eyes. We will visit Caesarea by the sea and Joppa, where Jonah caught a boat going in the wrong direction. We'll take a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee, just as Peter did when he walked on water. We will walk on the Mount of Olives and through the Garden of Gethsemane. You will have the opportunity to explore the Temple Mount and visit at the Western Wall and even go underneath the Temple Mount. You'll be able to visit the City of David and Hezekiah's tunnel. And have you ever wanted to float on the Dead Sea or visit the cave where David cut the corner of King Saul's robe? Or perhaps spending a morning at Masada? These are just some of the once-in-a-lifetime experiences you will have when you join us on our Israel trip. Thank you for tuning in to the Tom Hughes Report. We pray today's program was a blessing to you. The purpose of the Tom Hughes Report is to guide individuals toward the hope that can only be found in a personal relationship with Jesus. We encourage you to explore our website at thetomhughesreport.com and reach out to us through the contact page. We value your feedback and would love to hear from you. A special thank you to his channel for graciously allowing us to utilize their wonderful studios for recording the Tom Hughes Report. Don't forget to explore their website at hischannel.com for an array of Christ-centered programs. Make sure to join us again next week for another insightful episode of the Tom Hughes Report. And always remember to look up and lift up your head because your redemption draws near.